What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting across from me this week and every week. So why did the little airplane get sent to his room?
Why?
Because he got a bad altitude. It's Desra!
Oh look, it's a mail plane. How do you know it's a mail plane?
I don't know.
Let's get the little balls. And sitting across from me, of course, is Brian Paul.
I don't even get that joke.
It's from the Three Amigos.
And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we dip into the PlayStation VR
5 people in the comments are like, "Oh yeah,
archive," and we take a look at an old PlayStation VR game. We dust the blow off of it, and we decide whether it's been improved since launch. We look to see if it's been given any love by the developers, any DLC, or if it stood the test of time. That being said, what game did we decide to play this week, Desert? And if you don't know, you can just look at the poster that's on the wall.
It's of course Wayward Sky.
Wayward Sky by Uber Entertainment, released October 10th for some ungodly reason.
Yeah.
Just in case you really wanted to stock up on those PSVR games before PSVR came out. 2016 for $19.99.
Yeah, I had to check that a couple times because October 10th. No, I'm pretty sure it was the 16th. And no, it released a week before PSVR actually released.
13th. So
13th.
3 days.
Sorry, yeah, 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too bad. There were actually a few games that did that. I want to say Here They Lie came out ahead of time as well. Stock up. Get ready for the big party.
A life-changing event.
Uber Entertainment.
Yes.
This is a name we've heard at least a few times around here lately.
Yeah, we've talked about them before with Dino Frontier.
Yeah.
Of course. And then their eventual evolution into Outer Loop Games.
Outer Loop Games, where they're making Falcon Age,
Yay.
which we should see supposedly this spring, I'm guessing, right? That's what they said.
I hope so, yes.
Yeah. I interviewed Eka on the channel. If you're curious about Falcon Age, go check out that interview.
Yes.
Totally very awesome and chill dude. So what kind of game is this?
It's a point-and-click adventure, I guess.
According to them, it's a look-and-click adventure.
Look-and-click, but sure.
I'm not totally sure because I'm still pointing. I'm still clicking.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that.
And is this the first third-person platformer for the PSVR?
I wouldn't call it a platformer.
Or with the third-person game? Yeah.
I'm going to say I can't. I'm thinking through all the list of launch titles in my head, and I can't think of another third-person one, which means there's at least 3.
Right. Well, 100-foot robot golf, maybe.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this was one of the first ones to kind of show that VR can be something other than first person.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is basically your nuts and bolts point-and-click adventure.
Yeah. It's sort of like if they took Alamet and they made a game out of it, right? Because it sort of has that same feel about it, except you actually have control over the characters.
Right. Yeah, and it does have it does a lot of nice things with playing with the sense of scale. Like you are way up and above the action that's happening.
Yeah.
And then you have your little character who is I guess is Bess, and you use either the DualShock or the Move controllers to point her to someplace on the board to go, or on the level to go, and she kind of will walk there if she can.
Let's put a pin in that for a second.
Yes.
Because on the PlayStation Store, the description of this game says
Yes.
Dual Move controllers required, 2 required, or DualShock 4 required. It says all of those things. It says all 3 of those things are required. 2 Move controllers and DualShock 4. None of that's true.
No.
Because you can literally, even during the game, swap them out. You can do 1 Move controller, you can do 2 Move controllers, or you can do the DualShock 4, and it all pretty much plays the same.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I do like the look of the Move controllers in-game, though.
Yeah, they look great. It's kind of this little flashlight thing. It's it's detailed enough that it's not a generic thing, but it's not overly complicated, like torn.
And it's not a Move controller. I hate when you just have a Move controller in a game when you're holding a Move controller.
The only time I do like that is if there's a very complex button system.
Yeah.
Although eventually we had the whole conversation about Skyrim's hands, I will say when you first play it, and if you're first learning how to use the Move controllers, it is very useful to actually be able to see where the buttons are.
Sure.
But once you're familiar with it, give me my hands.
But for the rest of us who've been using the PlayStation 3 Move controllers for the last 7.5 years, I know where the buttons are. But all that aside, the DualShock 4 actually is a DualShock 4 in game, so you can't win them all, kids.
Right, and I will say, it says, even when you start it up, it says it recommends dual move controllers, and I'm trying to figure, I was looking the entire game, all right, where's this level where I need both hands? and it just simply isn't.
No, but it does. I think it feels better when you have one in each hand. There's like cranks you can turn, levers you can flip, and switches. And if you can just kind of like boom, 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 rather than just like being one-handed. Yeah. And I don't know. It just feels better. I think they're just trying to go for the most immersive experience. But yeah, most of this is presented in third person.
Right, until you actually walk Bess over to something that you need to interact with, and then it drops into a first-person view. So you're actually, you're taking her point of view, you're using your hands to flip switches, move things, etc.
And this you can. It's so kind of cool to do a deep dive into one of these and see the evolution of a studio. Whereas Uber started off and they did this game, and then they did Dino Frontier. And like the transition between this and Dino Frontier is pretty dramatic in terms of what they were capable of in VR.
Right.
Because in this game, almost all the camera angles are static.
Yes.
It's not like Dino Frontier. It's not like Tether. We can just take the world, drag it, twist it, and turn it, zoom in, zoom out. It's not like that. And I kind of wish it was. Because it's tough to experience something like that and then go back to something where you're like, you don't have control over that.
But
I know what you're going to say, and please say it.
Okay.
I'm psychic today.
Well, I was going to say, like, there are a lot of collectibles and things like that in the game, and your forced perspective is part of what makes those things hard to find.
Yeah.
And they're not super hard, but it is one of those things like, oh, wait, where does that go? And if you could just move around the world around, you'd be able to see it, but now you actually have to take the time to explore this kind of little nook and cranny. And I did find myself, like, peeking my head into different pipes and tubes and...
Yeah. I started this game today, or restarted. I played this back at launch and reviewed it, but I restarted it today sitting on my couch. And very early on, there's like a section with crates and ladders.
Yes,
and I was like,
that's exactly what I was thinking about, actually.
And I was like, I think there's something back there. And I was like, oh, I can just get up and look.
Yeah.
And I literally just stood up, and like at no point did the game say, you're out of the correct area. It didn't tell me to sit back down. It didn't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, go ahead, Brian. Let's just go look around. And I did. I looked around the corner, and there was the thing I was looking for.
Yep.
And so I had to then figure out how to kind of maneuver my way around and get there. So I think that's encouraged in this game.
It is, and we give Moss a lot of credit for like being so immersive and being a world where you can look around and all that. But hey, Wayward Sky was there first.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And they do call this a look and click adventure. We call it a point and click adventure, but it does differentiate itself from traditional point and click adventures in a few ways. There's, and this I think this is probably something we're going to come back to a couple times during the course of this interview. Am I interviewing you? During the course of this episode. Is that there's no inventory system.
Right.
So all you're doing is really walking around, flipping switches, turning things, and it's all pretty self-evident what you're supposed to be doing. There's no like environmental or situational puzzles. It's very straightforward. Yeah,
and that comes from, that's a design choice. In the development, this was way early. Its development, it was for Oculus. It was shown off at oh gosh, I wish I had written that on my notes. But basically, the basic root of the idea, and then Eka heard about the PlayStation VR, and like, well, it's not quite there yet. But then Sony said, hey, you got something that's almost finished and ready to go. Let's talk. Yeah. And it became a PlayStation exclusive, but because it was so early in the process, they were stuck with a lot of the different hardware variations, a lot of different software variations. They had to do a lot of messing with the game, so they also apparently didn't really know at that point how long people were going to be willing to play in VR. So
they hadn't met me yet.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a deliberate choice to make the puzzles simpler, so that people weren't going to get too frustrated and want to bail out of the game early.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, one of the weaknesses of the game. Like, it's one thing to understand why they made those choices, but on the other hand, there is no puzzle that'll take you more than 2 tries.
And that's it, right? Yeah. Because it's at no point do you even have to go, okay, this button switches these platforms and this button switches these platforms over here, and then figure it out and reason through it. Yeah. You just hit this button and like, oh, that didn't do it. Hit this button. Okay, now hit this button. Okay, it just happened.
Yeah,
you fall into the solution more often than you discover the solution, or then you figure out the solution.
Yeah. So which is a shame, but again, it's early days, so. I think the one thing that was, I think, the biggest missed opportunity for me, there are wind chimes that are kind of hidden throughout.
Let's talk about wind chimes.
Yeah, and so it's basically one of the collectibles. There's a couple different types of hidden collectibles throughout the game, and the wind chimes, basically you navigate to this table, and there's a thing hanging up here, and there's 4 pipes, and you hang the pipes on the chime, and hooray, you found it.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that was a puzzle.
I thought so too.
I thought it was like, they're
balance them.
Exactly right. And so I did the first one, like, I lucked into the answer, great. And then I found the next one, like, that looks really similar to the other one. And you put it up, and actually it doesn't matter where you plug them in. It's the same setup every single time. So it is, it does add a little bit more challenge because you have to find all the chimes, right. And some of them are hidden in pretty clever ways, or at least ways that, like, you said, I know exactly how to solve this puzzle. Oh wait, how do I get to the chime? And that's going to kind of mess things around for you a little bit.
And also, there's I think when you're solving the wind chime puzzles, there's 5 lights on top, and so there's 5 lights. That means there's 5 wind chime puzzles in that level.
Yes. And
so sometimes you'll see like green, red, and then you solve the puzzle, and this one turns green, and you're like, oh crap, I missed one. Yeah. And so that's for me that like kind of dove into my OCD like collect-a-thon mentality, where I'm like, okay, now I have to go back and figure out what I missed and kind of do them all, because now that I know that like not only are there 5 in this level, but I just missed one,
right?
Like it'll drive you crazy.
And the other collectible are these kind of metal eggs that are hidden through that kind of represent parts of some of the robots that you'll be experiencing, and those are you don't have to go to find them. You can just kind of, if you see them in the world, point your controller at them, but they are hidden in some pretty obscure places sometimes, so you do need to do a lot of like peeking around and looking in non-obvious places. But even at that, going through and finding all the collectibles, and there is a level select, so once you finish the game, you don't have to replay the whole thing. You just go back to the level that you missed.
Luckily,
that's maybe going to add another 10% of time to it. It's not true. They're not, I mean, they are harder to find and solve than some of the other puzzles, but it's not like, this is brain-breakingly difficult to find where this egg is.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, how long did it take you to blast through this thing?
It was probably 3 hours. Okay. But that was cut probably for the first 2 hours. I was painstakingly going through. I was like, no, I want to find all these collectibles. And then, I was kind of running out of time. So I was like, you know what, I'll just finish the story and move my way through.
Yeah. Quite the story.
Yeah, it is I was going to say a nice little story, but there's, some darkness to it. Yeah. But I think it's told in a very sensitive and good way. I think this is going to be appropriate for pretty much all ages, even though it deals with the death of parents, basically. But it's also told in these in 2 interesting ways. We've talked about already, the gameplay is third person and switches to first person, right. Except for the cutscenes. There's some cutscenes where it's third person again, but in very different environments. So one, it's third person, but you're at first person scale, if that makes it. So you're actually seeing Bess as you would if you were there in the space with her.
Right, because a lot of the game it feels almost, I don't want to keep using the term like, but diorama-like, where it's like
absolutely.
You're peeking into a world like just like Alumet again, where everything does seem very small because you're like this seemingly like a giant hovering over and looking at the world that way. So it does change things up like drastically when you do see things at that scale.
And the other is these cardboard cutout. It's more like very thick pieces of wood that are painted, sort of I don't know, like puppet show kind of things. And that's I think that's a great solution to our 2D cutscene problem.
Yes.
It looks great. The sort of clockworky animation adds to the environment and the settings. Wow, I couldn't pull the word setting. Amazing. Yeah.
And what do you think the setting is? Like I wrote a little steampunk question mark because like it's not totally there, but it's like bordering on
It's diesel punk.
it's diesel punk.
I did not coin that term. That is a thing.
I thought that was going to be a without parole exclusive.
No. Yeah, it's definitely in that though. Like the robots, there are four robots that you deal with. They're just big and clunky, and they feel very real. And that's another thing I want to point out is we've seen a lot of games in VR where you're in a VR world, but everything still feels kind of flat and hollow. You feel like if you could walk up and grab it, you kind of crush it. Everything here feels really solid. There's a good sense of presence.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the animation on Bess. Like, she's like, running around. She's like, she's not just going to a ladder and climbing up it one rung at a time.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of like does like a little leap onto it and then like a leap off of it, and the whole thing just feels. I don't want to dive into like Pixar Disney Pixar territory, but man, like the animation is, as far as I'm concerned, for a VR game, like top notch.
Yeah, no, it's really well done, and you definitely, the characters are well thought out and designed. I'm not saying like, if we're gonna bring the Pixar thing up, it's not as like heart-wrenchingly, you get the story and you're like, oh, that's sad, but it's not like the beginning of say Up, where like, oh god, I'm grabbing the tissues,
which and I wish it was, because that's the kind of stuff that really works for me. Like if you make me cry in like the first few minutes of a game, or even at any point during the game, like I'm gonna like your game more, right? Like so go kill the Falcon, dude. Like just kill the Falcon at some point in the game, bring it back to life later, just kill it at some point, right? You get me crying and I'll be like, oh, I love your game, I just want to bring the bird back. So that's, and I kept waiting for that to happen in this. I was like, oh, this is like tragic and like sad and whatever. It's like pulling to the heart, and I was like, oh, it just never gets there. It like leans into it, and then you're like, okay, now it's gonna push some buttons and flip some switches. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it kind of glances the surface, and basically you're kind of presented with two different families who both have to deal with the death of a parent, and how like your character deals with the death of her parent, and how I don't know if this is a spoiler for a 3-year-old game, but and your main villain deals with the death of his parent in a very different way, let's say.
Yeah.
But it's not like an overtly huge part of the story. I mean, part of the gameplay, I should say, is obviously it is the story, but it's not like you need to know that in order to make your way through the game.
Yeah. I do like that, despite the fact that we said these are static camera angles. I do like that they experimented.
Yeah,
you could tell that this was like a first VR project for them, and I like that they not only were like, okay, well, to avoid motion sickness, we're going to do this for the core element of the game, but they also, like, there's little things here and there where you're like, they're pushing the boundaries and seeing what they can do, and I really like that early on in the game. There's like this chicken or rooster, right?
Yeah,
I don't know, something, and you feed it, and then eventually it flies you over this gap,
right? Yeah,
right. And so for the first time in the game, the camera is panning, like it's following the character in third person, and it's moving. And the structure that you're flying through is like shaking, it's being destroyed, it's like falling apart, and it's like kind of crashing down around you. And I remember thinking today, like, wow, I wonder what people's reactions were to this on launch day. Because it is a little intense in VR, when on a flat screen it would be whatever, it's nothing.
Oh yeah, and like when Windjammer, that's the kind of the red robot goes to grab you and just misses. It's pretty impressive. And later you see Merc, which is the largest of the robots. There is an awesome scene, kind of running scene, where, without spoiling things, you get to see exactly how big Merc is compared to you. And they also do a fantastic job with, and this is something we talked about in the Invisible Hours, when you're trying to tell a story in VR, it's so different than trying to tell it in a flat screen, because I have control over your point of view.
Right.
Even in a first-person game, I still can, I can force you to look where I want you to. In VR, I can't. I got that tool's taken away from me. So I have to do something with the level design or whatever to make you look where I want you to, so you see the thing I want you to see. And again, without spoiling too much, there are times when you really need to be looking somewhere, and they've done a fantastic job of making that the most natural place to be looking anyways.
Agreed.
So excellent direction.
Yeah, and something we don't talk about, I think, nearly enough about is music in games, and because I mean, I definitely come from a music background, and and I think if something is done, we've said this before, if something's done well, you don't notice it.
Yeah,
and
especially with soundtracks.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, it's been in the back of my mind lately. I'm like, Brian, pay attention to the music. Let's talk about the music. And like right off the bat, there's this somber, mellow, like background instrumental music, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be nice.
Yeah.
I hadn't played this game in like 2.5 years. I put my headphones on, and it just kind of like eases you into the game, and then like I didn't recognize the transition. Like I didn't hear when it went from like this like somber, quiet thing to like this kind of almost upbeat jazzy thing.
Yeah.
Where I'm like solving puzzles, I'm walking around, I'm hitting buttons, flipping switches, and it's like kind of like going along with my whole puzzle solving mentality. It's like this is totally working for me. Yeah, it's nice. I really, for whatever reason, enjoyed the soundtrack of this one. Like, and I don't even remember talking about the music when I reviewed it.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's there. It helps add things, but it's unobtrusive. It doesn't like overpower everything. It does exactly what a soundtrack should do. And the audio design in general is really good on this as well. My only nitpick, your voice acting in the main characters is decent to good. The only time it was noticeably bad was there's a point where you're helping other prisoners escape, and some of them were like, oh, what's going on here? Well, what's going on is some of the developers are actually the voice actor guys.
So do you know this for sure?
I do, because I made sure, like, I need to watch the credits and see what's going on here, and that's exactly what it was.
That's great.
So lesson learned, like, we love the fact that you're in your game, but sometimes that's why you pay for professional voice actors.
Yeah, or you just send me pizza and coffee.
Or
I'll
get Brian to do
free voiceovers.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the Nolan North of PlayStation VR games.
No, it was so noticeably, because like the other voice acting is good. It's
Yeah, like you said, it's like decent to good. I thought right off it was a little stilted, but yeah, you ease into it and it's good. But also, I think it's not cutscene heavy. Like, there's not a whole lot of like voice acting going on here.
Yeah,
they give you a little bit, and then they put you back in the game. They give you a little bit, and they put you back in the game. At no point was I like, when is this cutscene going to be over?
The bots are super cute.
The bots are adorable.
Yeah, the voice acting on the bots is great too. I do like that. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah, and it's just good. The whole game has a great look to it. Like, I don't know. I mean, we already kind of said, diesel punk or steampunk, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, it borders on cartoon. It's got these pastel colors. There's like this fog, sort of.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like glazes over the world. It just looks like nothing I've ever played before.
Well, and we haven't said, like, the place you're at is actually floating up in the sky. It's this floating steampunky, dieselpunky castle in the sky. So I think a lot of that haziness is the clouds or whatever. And then, one other setting part, like, I do love, there's a part where you're actually back at Bess's farmhouse, and it's probably even considering Skyrim, it's the first time you get a sense of like how big a space can be, because basically it's the plains. It's just this huge open plains, and there's your house and your barn, and because of your perspective, you can just see for virtual miles and miles and miles all the way off to the horizon. And it's I don't know, it's the first time in a game I've felt that sense of scale. Like, even some of the levels in Skyrim where you're looking out over a valley and all that, just for some reason doesn't feel as expansive as this did. Yeah. I don't know what the special sauce was, but it was really neat.
Nice. Well, I think it's probably time to rate this thing.
Alrighty, wow.
Yeah, that felt fast.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Our rating system is pretty easy. A 1 is yes, you have to buy this. If you have a PSVR, it absolutely has to be in your library. Just stop listening now and go buy it. 2 is, yeah, sure, why not? If it's on a sale, or if it's a genre you particularly like, go ahead, pick it up. We're not going to make fun of you. And 3 is, no, do not buy this game. Friends don't let friends buy crap. We need to vote with our wallets and tell the developers that we deserve better. So, 1, 2, or 3, what do you think?
Right off the bat, when you sit down at the main menu of this game, like, there's like a desk and it's got like a ball. And there's like a plane you can pick up and you can just toss it and it goes flying off into the distance. And I mean, like these guys subscribe to the Brian Paul mantra of in VR I want to pick stuff up and throw it. Yeah. And so right off you're like oh, this game feels tangible, right? Especially like you go into the first person mode and you're like doing the things and you're like
and we didn't even talk about the arcade game.
Let's talk about the arcade game.
Yeah, so putting a pin on the review. So as you find those Easter eggs and unlock parts of the bots, when you finish a bot, you go back to that desk, and if you look to your right, there's an arcade game. You fire that up, and it's like the cutscene with like the paper puzzle cutouts. There's a puppet of your bot, and there's some bad bots there, and you basically have an arcade. You use your move controller to move your character up and down, and the button to kick, and you get points for each little bot you kill.
It just adds to like the whole. It's not a lot going on there.
There's a trophy there if you kill 100.
I don't think I have that trophy.
Yeah,
I certainly didn't kill 100.
No, thank you.
Go back and do that. Yeah. So that like again that just adds to the whole. Didn't have to be there, right? It's just like here's something extra. Like this is launch day VR.
Yeah.
This is hey, you just put on your headset for the very first time. Most of you have never played a VR game before. You get to dive into this world, play this game, and then here's like all these little extra things that they just kind of added just for the heck of it. I like this game.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think at any point that I'm not a fan of Wayward Sky, because I think I'm a bigger fan of Wayward Sky now than I was at launch. I think I grew to like this game over time.
Yeah.
But it's too easy. There's not a lot of content here.
Yep.
And unfortunately, for $20 on the PlayStation Store, there are so many good options.
Yeah.
So many good options. This game has been on sale twice in the last 2 years for $10 to $12 each time. I think that's a great price.
Okay.
$10 to $12 range, great price. You know what you're getting into. It's a mellow, somber, chill experience. Closer to 3 hours. I think this is a solid 2. And I really enjoyed it, even if the puzzles were, definitely on the unimpressive side.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually they almost exactly. It is a 2, and a 2. Like I really enjoyed it as well. I'm glad I played it. I think on sale, it's a fantastic price, and I think it's kind of like par for the course. Like Dino Frontier, we said a lot of the same stuff. This looks great. This sounds great. I love this world. Everything's great about it, and then it's over.
Yeah. And
I feel the same way about Wayward Sky. It looks great. Like it looks polished. It looks like a finished game. There's so much thought put into the world. Even though the puzzles are simple, there is a lot of thought putting. And actually, I didn't even realize this until I just kind of encapsulated it now. There's a lot of thought put into showing you how easy that puzzle is. Like it is laid out very clearly what you need to do. There's no point. There's some puzzle games where we walked in, it's like, it's not that I don't know how to find a solution, it's just that I don't even know, am I looking at a puzzle?
Yeah, been there many times.
It's like, is this just a weird decoration, or is this a clue, or is it,
You flip something in one room and something happens in a different room, you're like, I don't even know what I just did.
Where this, it is very clear. Now, it is to the point where maybe it's a little too clear, but it is, at no point are you confused about what you need to do next. So I'm gonna say it's a 2. I love the design of Dino Frontier. I love the design of this, and I don't know. We keep talking about we're excited for Falcon Age. So this is a very strong 2 if you like puzzle games, or if you want a little dip into VR prehistory,
or you don't like puzzle games and you want a nice, easy my first puzzle game.
Right? Yeah. And if you want to crank out a bunch of trophies, man, this is a great place, great way to do it.
No platinum though.
No platinum. No.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Oh well. All right, I think that does it for another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Of course, we're always looking to hear your feedback. What did you think of Wayward Sky? Did you play it at launch? Did you play it recently? Are you buying it because it's the topic of our show this week? I don't know. I don't think anyone's ever said that except for Werewolves, which was on sale when the show went up.
It was
last
nice
week.
timing.
That was perfect timing. Everyone had 24 hours to buy Werewolves Within, and a lot of you did. So that's awesome. I can't wait to play with all you guys. What did you think of Wayward Sky? What other games do you want us to play? We have a list.
Oh, we do.
The list is long.
And getting longer.
As always, my name is Brian Paul.
I'm Des.
And we'll see you next week.